Alright, we're doing this late Saturday because it was either do it now or do it on Monday. And I really didn't want to have to do it on Monday, so here we are. So I just got off a really long work day, and I've got another one tomorrow, as well as a pretty long commute. So I'm in a pretty foul mood right now. So that puts me in the perfect mood to review this show because, quite frankly, this was a pretty foul impact. And for the record, I'm not going to be talking to the chat room afterwards. I don't have a whole lot of time to do this. I just want to get the review done, eat something, then go to sleep. Because tomorrow's going to suck. Quite frankly, today was pretty exhausting. So let's just do this. Impact Wrestling from this past October the 5th. Christ, it's still like 80. It's like 80 plus degrees every day, and we're in fucking October. Don't get me started. Anyway, our show proper begins with an Eli Drake promo. Never a bad thing. So he cuts another really entertaining promo about how he took a backhoe to Slamtown and built a parking lot over it, and then he erected a new business, Eli's Cakes. Yummy, yeah. That was great. So he claims that Johnny Impact isn't here tonight. And he kind of mimes what he did to him last week. He takes off the jacket. He performs the gravy train on his own jacket. I would have marked out if he dropped the knee on it to finish the jacket off. This was great. So anyway, because he's a true global champion, Eli Drake is off to Japan next week to represent the company overseas. And by virtue of that, he's got the night off. So lucky us, we get to watch Chris Adonis wrestle instead. And it turns out that there was a lot of bad luck going around because Adonis had to wrestle the match in his skinny jeans. I'm not sure who got the worst end of that, Adonis or the audience. Anyway, Adonis wrestles Garza Jr. And, as much as I like Garza Jr., the match went too long and it drags, as Chris Adonis matches tend to do, because his offense is, well, it's pretty boring. And they still seem to be under the impression that this guy is interesting. And he's really not. Frankly, Garza Jr. should have won this match a lot sooner, and not only does it take him a long time, he doesn't even get to win the match. Because Johnny Impact shows up, and he interferes, and the genius causes a DQ and gives the DQ victory to Chris Adonis. Tonto, C! Tonto, C! Tonto, C! And then he gets into it with Garza Jr. too, because the dummy is just incensed with anger. So Jim Cornette comes out, and he makes Johnny Impact versus Garza Jr. next week for the #1 contendership for the world title at Bound for Glory. At Bound for Glory. Okay, bear in mind, I like Garza Jr. a lot. They've definitely got a definite breakout star with this dude, but what on earth has he done to earn a shot at the main event of Bound for Glory? What, beat Braxton Sutter? Wow, huge accomplishment right there. They just went from 0 to 100 with him in the span of one segment. They're hot-shotting this guy so fast it feels unbelievably contrived. It's not organic at all. And the way this whole thing was just thrown out there so casually, it felt like they were setting up two guys vying for a spot in an Impact main event, not for the main event of their biggest show of the year. The writing here was so rushed and so sloppy, I can't for the life of me understand how this even got past the drawing board. Anyway, we cut to the LAX clubhouse, where Conan is really pissed off about them losing the tag titles the previous week. And Santana is pretty pissed off too. They almost come to blows. And There's a whole lot of tension in here. Really good segment, actually, and you get the impression that something's about to blow here. They're gonna do something crazy, something disturbing, something violent. And then we cut back to the Impact Zone where OVE beat a couple jobbers. Alright, they just won the tag team titles. Shouldn't they be past the squashing jobbers point by now? Just saying. Oh, and so they beat the jobbers and that's it. Really? LAX never show up? So what the hell was that pre-tape then? What was that pre-tape for that we just saw at the clubhouse? What was that for? If they weren't going to show up here and attack OVE. I don't know, you figure this shit out. So, next. Okay. The knockouts. So earlier in the week, Impact put out a graphic on social media advertising Sienna was going to be in some knockouts address type of segment. Now, it turns out that was being generous. Now, she does get some overdue promo time, but then she just cuts a very generic promo. I'm the Hall of Fame inductee this year. Gail Kim will never retire with the title because it's well performed, but the verbiage is very basic, which we've come to expect from these writers slacking off all the time. So, Gail Kim comes out. She wants a title shot. Then Taryn Terrell comes out, tells Gail to forget about Sienna and focus on her because Gail has never beaten Taryn before. Except Gail has beaten Taryn several times. So that didn't make sense. Then Allie comes out and she wants a title shot because I'm Allie! And it's funny because with the way Allie's been booked so weak lately, she really has no case to be in the title picture, and yet, with just 2 little words, she gets far and away the biggest crowd reaction out of any of these women. Then Karen shows up, because of course she does, and she books a fatal 4-way for the Knockouts title Bound for Glory. Fatal 4-way. Okay, there's a lot wrong with this. First of all, as much as I like Taryn and am a huge fan of Allie, how can you make a case for either of them being in the Bound for Glory title match right now? Allie has eaten a bunch of pins lately. She's still looked at as the rookie who's still learning the ropes and hasn't been on the winning side of any matches, really. Taryn hasn't beaten anyone either, hasn't been in any high-profile situations. She's been playing the chicken shit heel in a couple of tag matches who is scared to do anything while her partners have to win the match for her, essentially. So how they get into this match is a mystery. Second, with this being Gail's retirement tour and possibly her last ever match, you're obviously going to want that Bound for Glory crowd to be pro-Gail. So is it really a wise decision to put Allie in that match, who is, let's be honest, a hell of a lot more popular and over than Gail is at this point, which this segment demonstrated? Third, are you fucking kidding me with how you set this up? You knew Gail was back after Slammiversary. You knew she was doing the retirement angle. You've had months to write this storyline. Months to come up with the most compelling way possible to get from point A to point B, and the best you could come up with is 3 women just randomly come out, ask for a title match, and get one? That is so fucking lazy, I honestly don't know how any of these writers still have a job. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. After all, that's pretty much the exact same way they're setting up the X Division title match for Bound for Glory. And while we're on the subject of people just asking for title shots, remember Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie? Those 2 women who got into a big fight about which one of them should get a title shot first just 2 weeks ago? Where were they during this segment? They never even came out. Everyone else comes out and is asking for title shots and just happens to get one. Why didn't Rosemary and Taya come out while this was happening? I don't fucking know. So that made no sense. And look. I wasn't a big fan of the idea of building the whole knockout division around Gail Kim's victory lap going into November, but if you're going to do this damn thing, take some pride in your work and do it right. You've drilled into us for years that Gail was the greatest knockout ever, God's gift to women's wrestling, and all that crap. Now here she is going into her last ever championship match before she retires due to injury. There is so much drama and emotion that you could have and should have milked out of this with just the tiniest bit of effort. And you have taken advantage of none of it. You flushed every single bit of this down the toilet. Now, instead of a personal rivalry with some honest-to-God substance behind it, you've sandwiched Gail Kim into a fatal four-way with a bunch of women she barely has a feud with. The only real connection there is with Taryn Terrell, and even in that case, the heat is mostly stemming from their previous feud, not on anything they've done together since Taryn came back. That is so half-assed, it's pissing me off, and I didn't even want Gail in the Bound for Glory title match at all. And, you know what the saddest part about this is? I can book something better right now. Alright, here we go. Check this out. Rewind the clock a couple weeks to when Taryn Terrell came back and cost Gail the title against Sienna. Okay? You can still do the same tag matches you had on the show before, but now instead of Allie taking the loss for their team, Gail is the one who loses when she gets pinned by Taryn each time. You get over the idea that Gail isn't 100% anymore after the back injury. She isn't as tough as she used to be. She's not as resilient as she used to be. Now she's struggling to compete against the same women that she used to dominate before she got hurt. You put her on a bit of a losing streak. Make her an underdog for once. Give the fans a real reason to sympathize with her and rally behind her for a change. While also allowing some of the other knockouts to get some credibility-building wins over her that, quite frankly, they could all really use. Then, maybe she does an interview with JB, where she's feeling really frustrated and insecure, and she's like, my clock is running down here. I'm going to be done soon. And that's really hard to accept. But I want one last championship win. I want that one last moment in the sun before I hang up my boots. I need that to just to be able to stomach this forced retirement. It wasn't my idea to retire, but I've got no choice, really. I've got to do it soon, but I need this to be able to stomach that. And I believe I can do it, JB. I know I've got it in me, but it's a matter of just digging deep and scratching and clawing and fighting to get back to that mountaintop. It's harder than it's ever been now. I know I'm not the competitor I used to be, and my body keeps telling me that it's time to stop. But I just can't do it. I'm going to hold that Knockouts title one more time, even if it kills me. And then you can build up to a number one contendership match between Gail and Taryn, where they settle their rivalry for good. Gail gives it everything she has and finally gets the pin after Taryn beat her a bunch of times leading up to this. Gail becomes the number one contender. But now she's really hurting by the end of it. She's really selling that back injury, and she's in a lot of pain. Then Sienna attacks her, lays her out with the belt, attacks the back, cuts a promo saying that she'll die before she lets Gail touch this title ever again. That Gail is old, washed up, and it's not her division anymore. Gail will never have another title reign, never have another title win. She will retire a miserable, defeated, broken failure. Then we can see from Gail's reaction, her just crestfallen reaction, that a part of her, deep down inside, might actually believe this. Like maybe she doesn't believe that she can overcome Sienna at this point. But then Allie talks to her backstage. Gives her some encouragement. Tells her that she always looked up to Gail. That Gail was the reason that she wanted to be a wrestler. And that she always admired that Gail never quit. Never gave up. And goddammit, she can't give up now either. So now Gail feels invigorated by Allie's pep talk. Now she's got a little bit of hope. This sets up a personal one-on-one match with Gail versus Sienna for the Knockouts title of Bound for Glory that actually has some juice and momentum behind it. You still want the other two involved? No problem. Taryn tries to interfere in the title match, Allie fights her off. it sets up a feud between those two, and it gives Allie a little bit of a rub when Gail thanks her afterward. And then on Impact, Gail can say that she got that moment in the sun. Now she can retire satisfied and happy. But she thinks she's got one more match left in her. And she wants it to be with Allie. Or she wants it to be with Rosemary, or whoever. She loses that match and retires, putting over the next generation on her way out. Doesn't that sound more interesting? And guess what? It took me like less than 5 minutes to come up with that. But, you know, putting Gail in a hastily slapped together fatal four-way with barely any story attached is good too. If you like half-assed shitty booking, that is. So anyway, after this segment, we get another Joseph Park and Grado video. So Grado does an autograph signing, and once again, his pay for it seems oddly small. And once again, this is the only time we see Grado all night. That's very good. He's much more tolerable in small doses. But this is basically the same damn thing we saw last week. Grado gets paid by Joseph Park, by the imaginary law firm of Park, and Park, and the amount is unusually small. Yeah, we got that last week, Impact Writers. We get it. Joseph Park is screwing Grado out of his money. Because he's going to be a heel now. Because you think that's a good idea for some reason. Now how about you tell us what comes next instead of just regurgitating the same thing over again? Because this is just the same thing you did last week. Alright, then we have an X Division 6-man tag match. It's Sanjay Dutt, Petey Williams, and Matt Sydal. Matt Sydal, who was pushed against Bobby Lashley recently, beat Bobby Lashley, took the world champion to the limit, only to disappear for weeks, and then just got thrown into a random X Division match as a place filler. Versus Trevor Lee, Caleb Conley, and Andrew Everett. Now, you're probably wondering where the hell... You're probably wondering what the hell Andrew Everett is doing on the heel team since he's supposed to be a babyface, since he hated Trevor Lee and was actually feuding against Trevor Lee the last time we saw him. Well, Josh Matthews explained this. Apparently, Trevor Lee brainwashed Andrew Everett into liking him, and now they're friends again. Wow, that sounds like a really interesting storyline. Sure would be cool if we got to see that. Too bad the whole goddamn thing happened off-screen. It all happened entirely off-screen. Yeah, he just shows up on Trevor Lee's team. It's like, oh yeah, Trevor brainwashed him. They're buddies now because of the brainwashing. Jesus Christ. Impact Writers. Seriously now. Are you booking this show in your sleep? Did you even try? At all? This is embarrassing. I feel bad for the wrestlers who get shit writing like this and have to figure out some way to make it work, knowing that any Joe Schmo sitting in the crowd probably could have written something better. Fuck it. It's Andrew Everett gets pissed off that he hasn't been used in months and goes to Trevor Lee and says, hey, I still hate your guts, but hey, if I team with you, maybe I'll get back on TV, so what the hell? At least that would make sense. And they didn't even do an angle to show that they were back on the same page. No, he just shows up on the team, because he was brainwashed at some indefinable point, like last week or something that we never saw. He was just brainwashed. Maybe they could have had a tag match where Andrew Everett jumps out of the crowd and helps Trevor Lee and Conley win. That would have been a little bit surprising, maybe. But no, he just comes out on their team just like that, like it's no big deal. because of the brainwashing. Anyway, you might have noticed someone who was conspicuous by his absence here, and that's Desmond Xavier. You know, the winner of the Super X Cup. The guy who said he was going after the X Division title only to immediately vanish from television and hasn't been seen or heard from since, except for one blink-and-you-miss-it appearance in a backstage pre-tape with OVE of all people last week. That guy. Seems to me that if you had a place to fill in an X Division tag match, he would have been the guy to go to, rather than a Matt Sydal, who just a matter of weeks ago was doing a storyline about how he transcended the X Division, his words, mind you, and was moving out of it and onto bigger things. Now here's Matt Sydal back in the X Division, leaving the Super X Cup winner to sit on his ass backstage wondering why he isn't being used. It's a good match. Sydal pins Andrew Everett. Jeez, whose coffee did Everett piss in? And the faces win. Afterward, they all get on the mic and demand title shots. So you can see where this is going, right? It looks like the writers are going to take these 6 guys and throw them into some big car wreck spot fest at Bound for Glory. It'll probably be an Ultimate X match, because why have a one-on-one feud that might build and create a new star when you can just throw a whole bunch of bodies into an Ultimate X? Because, you know, if they just do that, then the writers don't have to work as hard. You know, it's just easier for them. You know, because of the laziness. They'll just want to do what's easier. So to summarize this, we've got these 6 guys, likely all being in some big schmaz for the X Division title at Bound for Glory, while the guy who should be in there most of all, the guy who has the best case to be in the match by virtue of being the Super X Cup winner, is doing absolutely nothing. If you were still wondering why I wasn't excited about the Super X Cup coming back over the summer, this is why. Because I knew in the long run it wasn't going to mean shit. You had Desmond Xavier win it. Great. He was the right guy to do that. Now you've got this hot new star with a lot of momentum and a big win under his belt who says he's going after the X Division title, and instead of actually doing something with him, you decide to focus on literally everyone in the X Division except him. Showing that winning the Super X Cup means absolutely nothing. Thus killing all his momentum that he gained from that win. It's almost like these writers want to fail. Laurel Van Ness drives a little scooter through the crowd. And she's still on the hunt for a man. You know, God bless Chelsea Green. She has worked some kind of black magic with this thankless storyline and gimmick and gotten it over. Good for her. But that doesn't excuse any of this. This just, God, my God, this is so bad. I don't know how she did what she did with it, but it's so bad. So she's some man hungry guy, crazy lunatic. Now, she makes out with some rando in the crowd, and then she scoots off. Question: where the hell is Congo Kong? Wasn't the whole reason he was attacking Grado a few weeks ago because he wanted Laurel Van Ness for himself? Isn't he the love interest of LVN? The announcer said he was. In fact, Josh Matthews used those exact words, the love interest of Laurel Van Ness. Well, now Grado's out of the picture, LVN is single, on the hunt for a man, and suddenly Congo Kong just disappears? Where is he now that LVN is looking like she'll jump into the sack with any guy with a pulse? Beats the hell out of me. Never explained. I guess we're just forgetting that Congo Kong was a thing. Forgetting that his whole wanting LVN for himself, I guess that just never happened. Great writing. Really. I'm impressed with the way you were able to tie up that loose thread there. Fuck's sake. We got a video package about Moose going to confront Lashley at the American Top Team gym. And yes, apparently it was necessary to remind the audience that Moose and Lashley are feuding because, quite frankly, this storyline hasn't been about Moose and Lashley. It's been about American Top Team and Dan Lambert and what he wants from Lashley. And Moose has been a very distant second in that equation. Every weak, and I do mean very weak attempt by the writers to push this Moose-Lashley rivalry in recent months has gone under the radar because American Top Team was always front and center, always taking the spotlight, and gobbling up everything else. So, the feud, if you want to call it that, between Moose and Lashley almost feels like an afterthought because you've always got American Top Team standing in front of both of them. So it should come as no surprise that when Moose goes to the American Top Team gym to confront Lashley, this nameless crowd of MMA thugs kick his ass and throw him out of the building like a total bitch. Because making one of your biggest stars look like a complete chump in order to put heat on a fucking gym owner is something that Jeff Jarrett thought was a good idea for some reason. Unless this storyline ends with Moose powerbombing Dan Lambert through a flaming table, and I highly doubt it will, how the hell is Moose supposed to recover from this? I mean, hell, even that wouldn't fix this shit at this point. This is terrible. You're making your own stars look inferior to a non-wrestler your audience greets with confusion and apathy, at best. And a crowd of non-wrestler assholes that don't even have names. I don't know who any of these guys are. And I don't care to learn who they are. And yet here they are, beating the shit out of Moose. Jeff Jarrett can't even protect his own goddamn talent because he's too busy making sure his buddy Dan looks like a bigger star than anyone else. Fuck this storyline. It's making Moose look bad, it's making me care less about Lashley, and the person who it seems to be focusing on most of all is the guy that nobody watching this thing even cares about. This angle is the drizzling shits, and the sooner it ends, the better. So, main event time. EC3 and James Storm versus Tejano and Phantasma. Yeah, the AAA angle was the main event. That's where we're at now. I'll say this. I did like, in this match, how there was obvious tension between EC3 and James Storm. So I like that they're not immediately acting like they're BFFs. So they still don't like each other, at least. So I like that that at least was kept intact and they didn't just retcon it away. That was good. But really, when Pagano didn't come out with the other two, it was very predictable that he was going to show up and get involved. And sure enough, here comes Pagano to interfere, and the AAA guys win by pinning James Storm after Pagano takes out EC3. Because why get behind your own brand when you can make someone else's company look better by comparison? It's all very basic and formulaic. The only thing that even approached original thinking here is that Eddie Edwards actually did not make the save to even the odds. Presumably because he's going to do that next week, so the writers can drag this out even more. I felt like this AAA angle took a step in the right direction last week, and now we're back to the whole thing just feeling like a big waste of time. You know what I'd like to see instead of this? EC3 and James Storm getting singles feuds for Bound for Glory, instead against other members of the actual Impact roster. Instead, they're probably going to be in some 6-man tag match against 3 guys that will most likely be gone once Bound for Glory is in the books. I only hope that once they do leave, that will be the last we hear of fucking AAA on this show for a while. If not longer. But that was actually not what we ended on. The final segment of the night is another pre-tape at the LAX clubhouse, where they put the tension to rest when Low-Key announces that they have a brilliant plan. They have a brilliant idea. They are going to have a 51-50 street fight. So yeah, it took them the entire show to come up with the idea for a street fight. Okay. That's it? Seriously. You think the announcement that LAX want a street fight is a big enough cliffhanger to end the show on? What's so special about a street fight? We see those things all the time. Sanjay Dutt versus Trevor Lee a couple weeks ago basically became a street fight in all but name. And now, what, we're supposed to shit ourselves with excitement because LAX won a street fight? Why? What's going to be different about that we haven't seen before? This was a frustrating show in a lot of ways. By and large, I'm pretty satisfied with the quality of wrestling we're getting right now, but let's just call a spade here. The writing sucks. The concept of effective and compelling and proper storytelling is lost on this creative team. Now, I'm not exactly optimistic about what the addition of John Gaburik is going to do to it, but any change is probably a change for the better at this point, because what I'm seeing on the show right now needs to stop. Week after week, I'm watching these people make so many idiotic mistakes, either due to them seemingly have no clue what actually makes a story interesting, or due to simple laziness, and leaving so much money on the table as a result. You want to blame football for the viewership right now? Go ahead. I blame the writing. Because the writing is just plain bad. Thanks to anyone who tuned in at this late hour on Saturday night. I'm sorry I can't talk with you guys tonight, but I gotta eat something and then get to sleep. Got another long work day tomorrow. And, yeah. Partially to blame for my foul mood at the moment, but yeah, this show really frustrated me. So, wasn't feeling terribly chipper to begin with. Thanks for tuning in. Over. Out.